Americans understand across all stripes how we're all being fleeced in the dead of night by people pursuing prolific careers who have their shoes up all y'all's rears. My mama had cancer. Weed helped her, but federal prohibition leaves states helter-skelter, melts your climate without carbon sequestering plants that might help you chill stress festering. Superfood grows anywhere easy, helps anybody if they might get queasy, but even those states once required hemp farming, we've let corporations control. It's alarming. I'm disarming our usual tropes that Americans must hang by a partisan rope. Nope, I'll smoke dope and toke a people's fire. I'm a poet, lawyer, organizer, artist climbing higher. Can you believe this reality? What your kids will see is up to you and me. Don't defer to the fools on TV. Resolve our challenges in your community. The NSA breaks the law every day. It doesn't matter who you are or what you say. They monitor your calls and your emails anyway. Corrupt Congress and courts paving the way. There is a lesson you will learn someday. Watch what you say. They spy on your mind, record your calls for posterity, commit daily executive crimes with impunity. They're the authorities here to keep us safe until the boot ends up on your face. Can you believe this reality? What your kids will see is up to you and me. Don't defer to the fools on TV. Resolve our challenges in your community. You might wish politics was about ideals, but honestly, the policy sphere on the reels is an arena for rich men to eat free meals, compete with each other to see who can steal more from the people to fund more war, liberty restrictions, dissent on the floor, arresting activists. What are rights for? So peaceful people can break down corrupt doors, like a military-industrial tax scam? Sure, profits over people, the predictable score, leave veterans homeless, reward corporate schemes, defraud taxpayers, destroy a generation's dreams. It seems this is a plight shared across many countries. Corruption, military jets to sundries, malpractice, the people by representatives duped. It's like Groundhog Day on an endless loop, loop, loop. Can you believe this reality? What your kids will see is up to you and me. Don't defer to the fools on TV. Resolve our challenges in your community. Welcome to Unrig the System, everybody.
Welcome to day 2. Yeah. Let's hear it one more time for Shahid. Shahid Buttar. For those of us who haven't met, I'm Joshua Graham Lynn, Managing Director of RepresentUs. I'll be your host for the morning. And I want to start by just saying how humbling it is to even be on this stage. Because look around this room, and what you'll see is that we are surrounded by the foremost experts in their fields. We are surrounded by people who have dedicated their lives to serving this country. You are surrounded by activists who work their ass off to make ends meet, and then they spend whatever time they have left fighting to make the world better for others. And beyond that, we are joined by millions around the country who stand shoulder to shoulder to us from afar. Now, the whole spirit of Unrig is for us to make friends and build bridges, so we're all going to get started right now. I'd like you to stand up, please. And turn to someone near you, and the first thing we're going to do is high five. Great. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to high five as many people as you can right now. All right, as you can see, you are surrounded by wonderful people. Thank you for clapping. Give yourselves a hand. We have an incredible lineup for you this morning. So in a few minutes, you're going to hear from 6 speakers who will self-introduce to keep things moving quickly. But before that, I want to say a few words about the morning. Because bringing together this many impressive people it made me think about the founding of our nation and the women and men who were there at its birth. And of course, they had many shortcomings that are often dulled by the veneer of history. But they began a proud tradition of this quest for a more perfect union. They framed this nation for every generation that was to follow. And so the question is, how were they so bold? How were they so audacious to think that they could do this, that they were the ones that didn't need approval from the people in power, but they knew that they could so inspire those around them that they would shape their own destiny and that it would become inevitable? Now, clearly the founders didn't get everything right, but here's one thing they did get right, that the government ought to be dependent on the people alone. And beyond that, they actually had the conviction to fight for it, because this promise of self-governance, it has been a North Star not just for the founders, but for the women and men who amended our Constitution 27 times, who fought to abolish slavery, who fought for civil rights. They fought for the right to vote regardless of the color of your skin or the gender of your partner. They fought for so much. And yet all around us, we know that our democracy is failing. And this is not just some failure of the political establishment. This is our failure, all of us. We are allowing it to happen. And in that, we are failing our children, and we are failing their children. We are failing our country. And when we let all of that happen, we fail ourselves. And I believe this is a crisis that requires that, like the founders, we stop asking permission. We stop tiptoeing lightly. This is a crisis that calls for the pounding of feet on pavement, for a boldness and an audacity that harkens to the founding of this country. And so I will urge you all here at this summit, think of yourselves as the next founding family for this country. I want you to leave here not just inspired by what you heard, feeling really good about it. I want you to leave here resolute and eager to demand something better from this country, and determined to leave our mark on history. Because if it's not the people in this room, if it's not you and me, who's going to do it? Remember, the founders did not ask for permission. No one told them, it's your time. They pursued their destiny, and we are here to do the same. Right now, this is our time. This is our moment, and it's time to unrig the system. Welcome.
8 years ago, the Supreme Court allowed big money groups to corrupt, to manipulate, to hijack our government. I support a constitutional amendment to overturn the court's Citizens United. Citizens United has allowed corporations to spend untold amounts of money into our system. And the 1%, their intent is basically to undermine the voices of those individuals who I represent. My name is Letitia James, and I hail from New York City. I am the public advocate of the city of New York, the second highest position in the city of New York. And prior to that, I was a city council member who was elected on an independent line, you may know it, called the Working Families Party line. I do not represent the wealthy, and I don't want a government where only the wealthy represent our interest. I don't want a government of those individuals who were born into wealth, who are legacy children. I don't want a world where only those individuals who can sympathize with me represent the interest of the people that I represent. I don't want only those who have never known pain and struggle, who have never known sacrifice. I want our government to represent the interest of all Americans. And so I went into office as the city council member with no money. You see, my friends have no money. Most of them don't even have collars. Most of them have pink collars. And I also have the distinction, because of those individuals without collars and those individuals who with pink collars, I have the distinction of being the first woman of color ever elected in the city of New York, which is but it's a sad commentary. And it would not have been possible but for New York City's campaign financing system. You see, I was born and raised in New York. I went to college in New York. I worked as a public defender and as an assistant attorney general, and then went on to serve as the city council. But despite my experience, my passion to serve, and my roots in the community, there was one thing I did not have, and that is money. Did not come from a wealthy family. You see, my mother and my father once cleaned halls that looked like this. They struggled each and every day. We were on public assistance. And when my brother got arrested in a criminal justice system where everyone in the court did not look like me other than the defendants, I wanted to reform that system. And I wanted to make sure that every mother and grandmother who steps into a criminal court is never, ever disrespected again. And so I ran. And I was able to run successfully because New York City has one of the best public financing matching systems in this country. Candidates can opt into a small donor matching program which matches small donations up to $175 at a rate of 6 to 1. 6 to 1. But rest assured, this is not a free-for-all, and there are strict rules. There is a cap on the total amount of public funds available to candidates, and there are rules on where the funds can be spent. And at the end of the election, any remaining public funds must be returned to the city. Now, I want to be clear. There is nothing wrong with being successful, and there's nothing wrong with being rich. But it's better to have the support of the public. And there's something wrong when backgrounds or your connections are a de facto requirement to pursue or hold office, and or your gender, because we certainly need more women to hold public office. It is wrong. It is wrong when elections are decided because of money and not because of merit. Because elections have consequences. And it's not a coincidence that across the country, from city halls to state houses to the halls of Congress, our elected officials more often than not represent the color of money and not the interest of people. And it is not a coincidence that legislation is seen by lobbyists before elected officials of the opposing party. This is not a partisan issue. I am a tried and true progressive and liberal, and I wear it proudly. And I am a great defender of the union movement. Which turned misery and despair into progress. And so I tell you that as an elected official who is supported by small dollar donations, my accountability is to my constituents and my constituents only, which is why I wake up each and every day drunk on hope with a fire in my belly. And I'm free. I'm free from the strangleholds of PACs and super PACs and big donors demanding meetings and policy changes. And every New Yorker, whether they donated $100, $5, no dollars, whether or not they voted for me or not, they know that they can come to my door and their voices will be heard, because every elected official in this country needs the freedom to represent the interests of Americans. And it is through public financing that we will get one step closer to ensuring that our elected representatives are representatives of our electorate, and then we can overturn Citizens United. We can do it together to unrig a system that is stuck, that needs you and me to overturn this madness. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. All I have to say to that is yes. Yes. That was so great. I'm so happy to be here with you. A very quick introduction. My name is Steve Hilton, and I am literally one of those fools on TV. I am the host of The Next Revolution on Fox News Channel. Yes, I know. You can get that out there. Get your feelings out right now. I am a fool on TV. But also, I just want to tell you how much I felt a connection to what we just heard, personally, professionally, in every way. It was such an inspiring message for us all. As you can tell, I'm originally from the UK. I live in America now. We've been here quite a few years, but I'm from the UK originally. I served in government there with David Cameron when he was Prime Minister. I was senior advisor in 10 Downing Street. But that's not my original story. My parents were refugees to the UK from Hungary. They fled communism. We started right at the bottom in a foreign land and worked our way up, and I understand exactly the need to make those changes so that the voices that have been ignored from the political conversation are heard loud and clear, as they have not been for many, many years. But I don't want to talk about my story. I want to start with a couple of stories that many of you will be familiar with, actually from last year, from, in fact, November the 7th last year. Just a couple of things that made me very proud, and I'll explain why in a second. Danica Roem. I don't know how many will be familiar with Danica Roem, the first transgender person elected to the Virginia State Legislature. Wilmot Collins. Wilmot Collins, the first elected black mayor in the state of Montana. Elizabeth Guzman, who many of you will have seen just responding to the State of the Union just now, from Peru. The first Latina elected to the Virginia State Legislature. All that happened on November the 7th last year. And you may say to yourself, why is a host of a show on the Fox News Channel praising the election of all those three people? Because they're all Democrats. That's one thing they have in common. They are all Democrats. But there's another thing that they have in common. They all raised their money and were successful and managed to get elected because they used something called CrowdPAC. And that's the second hat that I'm wearing here tonight, this morning. I am the co-founder and the CEO of CrowdPAC, which is a crowdfunding platform for politics. And when I first conceived of this, when shortly after moving here and teaching at Stanford and immersing myself in US politics, it was very evident to me that for a long time now, the US is not in any meaningful sense a democracy. It is a donocracy. It is a donocracy where the donors literally buy the outcomes that they want from the political system. That is the truth about America today, and that is what we at CrowdPAC are fighting to change. There are so many incredible campaigners here working in different ways to unrig the system. We're doing it in what we think is a very practical, specific way to allow people, new people to politics, outsiders, independents, independent-minded people of all parties, to run for office, to raise money, run for office, be successful, get elected, get in there without the obligation, without being dependent on the big donors and the traditional machines, so that once they're elected, they are truly able to represent the people that put them there, the constituents that they are supposed to represent, and not the donors that gave them the money to get into office and deliver their concerns and their issues. That's what CrowdPAC is all about, and that is the connection, really, between these two very different worlds that I inhabit. Fox News host, CEO of a company used, frankly, mainly by progressives to run for office and challenge Donald Trump successfully, as we're seeing last November. And in that tension and contradiction, I think you'll see that this movement that's represented here really isn't a partisan movement. It is not about Democrat or Republican or progressive or conservative. It is about everyone who cares about our democracy and making sure that people's voices are heard, giving power back to people. That is what it's all about. That, for me, is what the populist movement is all about. That's why I think that right now we have this incredible opportunity, because so many people are realizing how dangerously broken our political system is, and there is such energy behind the real change that is available to us to take and make happen. I just want to conclude by saying we've got a big team from CrowdPAC here. They would love to meet any of you. We're going to be in the Democracy Showcase at noon. We've got a stand out in the lounge just across the road. Any of you who are interested in running for office, raising money, supporting others, asking people to step up and take back power, just come and talk to us and we'll show you how it works and help you get started. Because, as I say, every Sunday night on the Fox News channel at 9 p.m., run for office, start a campaign, take back power. That is the next revolution we need. Thank you very much, everybody.
The year was 2001. In California, the state legislature used to draw the lines for themselves and Congress. I was a young attorney organizing in the Asian American community. For many people that we helped, this was their first time organizing themselves and testifying before any group of lawmakers. They took time off from work, made sure that there was somebody to care for their families so that they could spend the time to go before the legislature and talk about the stories of their communities and ask that they be kept whole. After 4 months of public hearings, the legislature went behind closed doors. It was at that time that I got a phone call from a state lawmaker. I was so excited. I thought, wow, they listened to our testimony. All of that time that we spent talking about our stories, they heard us. Instead, that lawmaker called me to say, Kathay, you are not going to put another fucking Asian in my district. Those were the words spoken by a Democrat who represented the city of San Francisco, one where 1/3 of the residents are Asian American. The year was 2016. In North Carolina, the state legislature drew the lines for themselves and Congress. As a result of lawsuits brought by allies like Southern Coalition for Social Justice, NAACP, and League of Women Voters, the courts threw out those election district lines as racial gerrymanders and ordered the state legislature to redraw the lines. In drawing the new maps, though, the legislative leaders very proudly announced, we want to make clear that we are going to use political data in drawing the maps. It is to gain partisan advantage in each one of these maps, and that the redrawn maps would give a partisan advantage of 10 Republicans to 3 Democrats. And why? Because they couldn't skew the map anymore to make 11 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Those were the words spoken by a Republican, a lawmaker from North Carolina, a state where voters are split 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans. I say all of this to remind us that the reality is that when it comes to manipulating district lines for partisan or political advantage, it's not a Republican thing. It's not just a Democratic thing. It's a power thing. And it's time that we, the people, take that power back. That's why any solution to unrig the redistricting process requires us to work across partisan lines and to champion solutions that lift all of our voices. And that's why, as the country turns our hopes to the Supreme Court for a possible constitutional standard to rein in partisan gerrymanders in a pair of cases challenging the Republican rigging of lines in Wisconsin and the Democratic rigging of lines in Maryland, our answer has to be transpartisan. I know out there in the audience, we have some leaders, and I want to just recognize them because this is not a one-person thing. This is a we thing, a big thing. I know that we have friends from Campaign Legal Center. Please stand up. Common Cause, Brennan Center. If you're in the audience, please stand up and be recognized. And don't sit down. Stay standing, because we need to see this is a big movement. At Common Cause, we work to submit amicus briefs from Governors Schwarzenegger, Davis, Kasich, and Hogan to show everyone that Democrats and Republicans can and do come together to call for change in redistricting. And that's why in California in 2008 and 10, we passed a pair of initiatives to create a transpartisan Citizens Redistricting Commission. I know there are some Citizens Redistricting Commissioners here today. Stand up. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. These are regular folks like you and me who gave their time to listen to people and become the first real independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. They drew the lines in an open, fair, and human-centered process. And if you want to learn more, you can go to tomorrow's session. And that's why we lift up movements that are happening in and around across the states. From Ohio and Michigan, stand up, leaders from Ohio and Michigan. I know you've been gathering signatures. Michigan just turned in over 400,000 signatures. These are amazing people. Missouri and Pennsylvania, stand up. I know you're out there. Oklahoma, Utah, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, stand up. You all deserve to be recognized because this movement is made up by people like you and me. And yes, even Louisiana. I know we've got folks from Louisiana who are out there trying to change the redistricting process. We all know that in order to win these victories across the states, we have to build inclusive coalitions. Labor and chambers, AARP and millennials, pro-life and pro-choice. I know that's hard to believe, but yes, that's what we have to do. Farmers and NAACP, newcomers and natives. And yes, perhaps the hardest coalition that we have to build between Patriot fans and Eagles fans. This movement cannot be about us versus them. It cannot be about revenge or punishment. We are in a time where there are so many who seek to sow deep divisions between us as Americans. But we are also in a time where people like you and me, have come together to shape a common vision. We have to find common ground to push for uncommon solutions. I want to ask everybody just to take a moment and stand up. Let us remember the words of Martin Luther King, because we are all in this together. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. Let love and inclusion guide our efforts to fix our democracy. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anita Earls. For 30 years, I've been a civil rights attorney doing voting rights work, mostly in the South. And the centrality of fixing our democracy has always been there in the civil rights movement. From the freedom schools that taught people how to pass literacy tests, to the March on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, it's always been about making the political process open for everyone. Fast forward to 2011 in North Carolina, when the legislature passed districts that packed black voters, created more majority black districts than ever before, the NAACP stood up and said, no, this is a distortion of our democracy. This is not what we wanted. And after 5 years of litigation, a federal court threw out those districts as racially gerrymandered districts. Unfortunately, they've been replaced with partisan gerrymandered districts. And again, the voters across North Carolina understand that partisan gerrymandered districts do not serve our democracy. During the redistricting process that Kathay just described for the congressional districts, when the legislators said we intend to create a partisan advantage, there was a small window of time for public comment, something like 24 hours. During that window of time, over 4,500 people submitted written comments. And these, I read them all. These were thoughtful comments from Republicans, from Democrats, from independents, and everyone had the same message: make our districts fair. We want a level playing field. Don't distort our democracy. So I say to you that there are thousands and thousands of people, like all of you here today, who care about having a fair process in our democracy. And when I have just recently, I'm one of those uncommon candidates, and the first time running for office, I've decided to run for the North Carolina Supreme Court. Thank you. And when I'm on the campaign trail and I talk about the distortions that gerrymandering creates in our democracy, I've been asked, well, come on, really, you're a Democrat. As long as they made the districts favor Democrats, wouldn't you be okay with that? And my answer, honestly, is no. We don't need a rigged system. We can win. All we're saying is give us a fair chance. That's what we want. So we know that our democracy in North Carolina and elsewhere is broken. When gerrymandering is unfettered, when money matters more than voters, when election administration is controlled by partisan actors who are willing to manipulate the process for partisan gain, when legislators are willing to pass laws to make it harder to vote, and nationally, when millennials poll and some 25 to 30% of them don't believe that democracy is important, we know that our democracy is broken and we have a long road ahead of us to make it work again. But what I bring to that is this perspective. I'm a mixed-race woman growing up in a family. My father was black, my mother was white. And crossing that racial divide was essential to our survival as a family, essential to my survival. And I think equally now, bridging the divide that we have in our country to come together and fix our democracy is essential to our survival. So what can I say to you about how we do that? I think it takes conversations, it takes sincere listening to each other, it takes being committed to working wherever you are and wherever you can, whether that's on the local level, on the state level, wherever you have networks. I believe that coming together and doing those things, we can bridge those divides and we can make a difference. So I enlist you and I thank you for being here today and for being willing to engage in that work. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Catherine Gale. This is Michael Porter, and this is Teddy, who's here because, as we all know, his future depends on us. There is no greater priority for our country today than political reform and innovation, the work that's being done by all the people in this room. He's underscoring that. But here's my typical experience in political reform. Travel to California, meet with a brilliant, philanthropic, self-made billionaire, and I make a compelling case for the great reform organization, the Centrist Project, and the billionaire says, oh, this is fabulous. I love this. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I gotta ask for 10 million instead of 1 million. But before I can get the words out, the billionaire says, "Count me in for $25,000. So this is a problem, because if politics is our single greatest challenge as a nation, then political innovators like this room should be generating massive investment. But that hasn't been happening at the scale we need. So Michael Porter and I joined forces to try to work on this. And we analyzed politics using the tools of industry structure and competitive thinking that Michael actually invented decades ago. These tools shed new light and help people and potential investors understand how politics really works. But most importantly, they provide compelling clarity on a powerful and precise strategy to transform the system. Our work is designed as a thesis for investment in political innovation. It is often said that Washington is broken, but this idea represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the problem. In fact, Washington is working exactly how it's designed to work, and it's still, see, it's frustrating. And it's delivering exactly what it's currently designed to deliver. How can our political system be so perfectly designed and yet deliver such dismal results? The answer is that it's not designed for us. Actually, the system has been designed and optimized over time for the benefit of private gain-seeking organizations, our major political parties and their industry allies, which together we call the political industrial complex. Now, in any game, board games, sports, or even a serious game like politics, the rules of the game affect the way the game is played. And you can change the rules in basketball and get a faster game. You can incent players to make shots from different areas of the court by instituting a three-point line. And we can change the rules of the game in any industry and get different behavior. Now, in politics, it turns out that most of the rules governing the incentives that drive day-to-day behavior are set by the political industrial complex by and for their benefit. I know, it's really rough. The net result is unhealthy competition on the wrong dimensions. Put another way, politics isn't broken, it's fixed.
It was hard to talk with that baby. What a great introduction, Catherine. As Catherine has said, our political problems in this country are not due to a single cause. They exist because of the nature of competition that the politics industry has created. Make no mistake, politics is an industry. It's a duopoly. That's an industry with two dominant competitors. And these competitors compete just like in any other industry to grow, to accumulate influence and resources, and to hopefully win. They work to advance their own interests, not the public interest. The customer of this industry should be us, but it's not. The parties don't compete head-to-head for the middle. That's too hard to win. And if they did that, they'd be held accountable. Instead, they've divided us. They've divided up voters into their respective partisan primary voters and special interests. This strategy leaves us with only two very different choices when we go to the polls. And in this kind of a system, voters are going to shift only when they are truly desperate and fed up. That's not the kind of system we want. Despite widespread public dissatisfaction, the industry itself is thriving. The pollsters, the money is pouring in. When this happens in an industry, When the customer is not satisfied, new competition usually emerges, but not in politics. This is because the one area where Democrats and Republicans work very, very well together is to protect this industry from real new competition. The parties collude, and by the way, this is go to jail in any other industry. The parties collude to set the rules to make it virtually impossible for new competition who might enter the business and better serve the customer. They've created very high barriers to entry. They control the infrastructure, they've co-opted the campaign staff, the channels of reaching voters, and many of the other dimensions of how to compete. They've set the election and governing rules for their advantage. It's no accident that independents almost never win, that third parties are only a dream, and even moderates have had little success. How can this happen? How can the parties set their own rules? Because unlike in any other industry, there's no independent regulation. There's nobody watching out for us. What can we do? The good news is that we can recapture our democracy, but only if we understand how this competition really works. Reform is going to require more than just idealism and isolated steps. It's going to require an overall strategy. We've laid out such a strategy about how to change the rules of this game and increase the accountability of the actors. We can change this game, and we must. And we want you to join us later today at 3:30 to hear the richer story of how this actually works. Catherine? We're done? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I have a very special project to unveil here at Unrig. Because, as many of you I'm sure know, we're asked all of the time, how can we get all of the different organizations in this space to really work together and collaborate better? So, Small Planet Institute, the Democracy Initiative, and RepresentUs have collaborated to help answer that question. And I'm very excited about what you're about to see. Please welcome Frances Moore-Lepay and Wendy Fields.
We are very, very excited, very thrilled about this conference and what we're going to tell you about. 2 years ago at our Small Planet Institute, we had a really big dream. We had a dream of an online hub for the democracy movement where we could all see each other and the world could see us, a place where we could discover the gutsy array of organizations and find our place in it, where we could be inspired and learn and keep up to date on the issues. And we're lucky enough to partner with Democracy Initiative and Wendy Fields. She's going to tell you more.
All right. Thank you, Frankie. We're excited to be launching the Field Guide for Democracy. We at the Democracy Initiative, a coalition of 64 groups from labor, civil rights, environmental movement, democracy movement, are ready to grow our movement. Are you ready to grow our movement? This map is a part of an overall field guide where we have committed to share our movement, share the power of the organizations. Over 90 organizations are represented. Kathay said this morning, folks from litigation community, from policy community. We will be able to folks will be able to go to the website, plug themselves in, ask questions, get information they need. This map will be a centerpiece. This map will have every campaign that will happen in the country that you all share with us. For folks to be able to plug in, whether you're in Missouri and want to be in the ballot initiative, whether you want to win redistricting in Michigan, whether you want restoration of rights in Florida, we will have our campaigns. There is a movement in this country, and we are winning. Thank you.
I'll just say one more thing about the map. Every organization in this space or any individual is welcome to just take this, embed it on your own website. It is meant to be open source, shared resource for all of us. That is a good question. Thank you. You can find it at unrigsummit.com/map. And I'm going to ask my colleague James to just show himself for a minute from one side of the stage or the other. If you would like to get on the map here at the summit, you're going to look for that gentleman. He's going to be at office hours at 4:45 in the Lefkowitz room. Go talk to him, get yourself on the map, make sure you're represented. We can all talk about it more later. unrigsummit.com/map. Thank you for the reminder. All right, our next speaker served as a Republican congressman from Tennessee for 16 years. In 2002, he voted in favor of the last major money in politics legislation passed by Congress, the bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act. He is a courageous and outspoken advocate on efforts to fix our political system and reinstate the founding principle of, by, and for the people. Please welcome Zach Wamp.
Good morning, Unrigged. How are we doing? All right, so I served in Congress for 16 years and actually closed the debate on McCain-Feingold, signed the discharge petition, took a lot of risk, been in the reform movement for about 25 years, but I'd kind of left Congress after losing the governor's race in Tennessee and returned to the private sector. I felt the earth tremble with two insurgencies last year, Sanders and Trump. I know something is happening underneath the surface, so I came back in as a national co-chair of Issue 1's Reformers Caucus. Issue 1 is an outside group, one of the 83 outside groups that are now in the reform movement here, political reform. But we're about ethics and transparency and accountability. We have 186 former members of Congress in a coalition, 55% Democrat, 45% Republican. We have 22 members of Congress today. 22 members of Congress today, two of which you'll see in just a few minutes, working in a bipartisan way on political reforms to try to put these issues at the forefront. Something is happening here. The American people are not going to tolerate it anymore. Change is coming. We can feel it. It needs to be generational. But let me just make a few points. I don't have long. The points I want to make is it has to be bipartisan. I was there when Obamacare passed. Well-intended, but when one party does a bill all by itself, something's wrong. The tax bill, over time, you're going to see that when one party does something all by itself, something's wrong. Integrity is not a part of the process when one party. This has to be done in a bipartisan way, number one. Number two, political parties are important. Activism comes out of them. They served us well for 100 years. They haven't served us well for the last 20. Party before country is un-American. Party before country is un-American. Tribalism is very dangerous. If you're part of your tribe ahead of integrity, ahead of the country, ahead of the next generation, it's wrong. Something's got to change. In this reform movement, let me make another point. There's 83 groups. We need to combine our efforts. We need to pool together. We need to all be going in the same direction. There is not, as Common Cause said yesterday, a single issue that's going to completely change things. But collectively, we can force the country to make the changes that we know need to be made. We all know this. I think it's time to go big or go home. We're running out of time. This experiment in whether people can freely govern themselves is actually not doing too well today. We believe that if we come together now, there's still time, but we've got to act. Issue 1's going to Philadelphia March the 15th with a National Constitution Center. It's called Restoring the Founder's Promise. John Meacham and Joseph Ellis, the historians, are speaking. It's a big thing. The focus is going to be on this political reform movement. We want the presidential campaign in 2020 to actually focus on these changes that everybody knows are logical. You shouldn't be able to buy TV ads with rubles in the United States of America. That's called the Honest Ads Act. We were part of bringing this to the forefront. And then the final point I want to make is I'm 60. I have 2 grown kids. They've asked me to step back into this because this shift needs to be generational. We need people in their 40s, 30s, and 20s to take over our country. All due respect to people 50 and over, help the young Americans take the country back over. They've got a lot more to lose than we do. We've had our way. My generation is the first generation in the history of the country that's going to leave this country in worse shape than we found it. My generation is the first generation in the history of this country that's going to leave the country in worse shape than we found it. For God's sakes, turn it over to the next generation because they have to pay the bills. They have to live in our environment. This is not sustainable. It's time for a generational shift. It's a rigged system. It's rigged towards older Americans. Quit retiring to the United States Congress. Go to Congress like your speakers that are coming up, Gallagher and Gabbard, 2 members of Congress, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. They both are veterans. They know what sacrifice means. Turn the country over to them. Let them lead. Get the older Americans out of the way. Don't retire to Congress. Send young Americans with energy and courage and drive and commitment. And let's come together as a nation. Let's put our country above party. It's time for action. The ground is shifting. We can make this change. We need to all go in the same direction. Thank you.
Jimmy had some Fox.
I know. How's my favorite lobbyist, Jim?
I can't complain. Good. What took you so long, huh?
Ethics committee hearings.
You gotta get one of those poker apps on your phone.
Right?
Yeah. Hey, I was thinking...
1334?
Yeah. We've got Senator Beasley on it. Dude's right. That's a solid pick.
Speaking of the right pick, Ben Affleck.
Great chin.
Yeah, fantastic chin.
Epic chin. The guy's perfect for Batman. Is 90% chin anyhow.
So anyway, about 1334.
I understand. You hate it. Your constituents hate it. I hate it. Everybody hates it. Freaking Ben Affleck hates it. But listen, my client's hot for it.
It's going to be a tough sell. You know, it is an election year. I'll just do the addendum play. You know, attached to some popular bill.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Quoted writer, we're going to sneak this thing in.
Right.
Via a series of, procedural parlays.
Vis-a-vis, whatever.
Right.
Middleman.
Beasley.
And what's this nonsense I hear about that bill with,
1334, right? Yeah.
You know, the public hates it.
That's what I said, but we promised.
Ah, there you go. That's your problem. Never make a promise, Ryan.
I was watching Miley Cyrus twerk. I think I can twerk.
2016, gentlemen.
2016. Usually you can seat up.
Well, I'll give my seat one for me.
Keep the seat warm for you when you get out.
Hi. I have something to say, actually, about that bill. I have these petitions.
I hope you were all paying attention to our metaphor for democracy. All right, next up we have a panel that I'm very pleased to introduce. The moderator is going to be Meredith McGehee, the Executive Director of Issue 1. With a career dedicated to public interest advocacy, she is on nearly every who's who list of the most influential advocates in Washington, D.C. Meredith is about to host our panel, Reform Across the Aisle, with 4 incredible guests that she will introduce. Thank you.
Good morning, NOLA. It's great to see such a great crowd and great to be here. I'm Meredith McGehee, Executive Director of Issue One. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit that works with independents, Democrats, and yes, Republicans, to fix the broken political system. And I'm going to moderate a discussion here today with a bipartisan panel. And part of what we want to focus in on is their own experience and their own background that has brought them to this moment. I would just put in one small pitch. I'm actually going to be doing 2 workshops this afternoon on citizen lobbying. Anybody who's interested in learning to become a better advocate, I'd love to have you join me. I'm going to turn to the panel right away because what I've asked them to do is introduce themselves and tell their own story. So we're first going to do that. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I want to make sure we spend as much of it as possible hearing from our panel. So I'm going to turn to the Honorable Tulsi Gabbard and ask each one of them to tell their story.
Aloha. It's wonderful to be here to join all of you. I'm excited to be here because I really believe in this cause and the mission that we have before us. Growing up in Hawaii, 4th of 5 kids, I never imagined as a kid that I would be involved with politics in any way. I was the shyest of all the kids in our family and, was kind of happily wrapped up in growing up in beautiful Hawaii, but learned an important lesson from a young age about how critical it is that we as individuals, when we see a problem, when we see a challenge, that we look in the mirror and say, how can I be a part of the solution? That translates directly into how can I be of service? How can I make a positive impact on those around me? So for me, growing up, the issue that caught my interest, that I started to get involved with even as a teenager, was protecting our environment, protecting our beaches in Hawaii, protecting our land and air and water. This was something that was not political. This was a very real issue in our daily lives and an important part of our culture. Long story short, that ultimately led me to run for office in Hawaii in the State House when I was 21 years old. A lot of people said I was crazy for even endeavoring to do such a thing, but was elected and was able to try to serve my constituents there in Hawaii. That has
I was part of the surge, and it was remarkable to see, notwithstanding all the dysfunction originally, and I myself hadn't supported the initial invasion, but I wanted to be part of something positive, we were able to turn things around. And so watching the slide of our position subsequently was troubling to me as a foreign policy person, and I would say there have been bipartisan failures in foreign policy, 17 years into the longest wars and most costly wars in American history, and I just couldn't sit on the sidelines watching that happen, watching budgetary dysfunction in Washington, D.C. cost us lives, our most precious asset in this country, the young men and women that we send to keep us safe, that give us the opportunity to have discussions like this and hopefully solve our problems peacefully. I wanted to be part of giving them the support that they need and solving a bunch of other problems. So that's the circuitous path that led me to Congress. I was also otherwise unemployable, so this was the last thing I could do. So. Thank you.
Nina?
Well, good morning. I'm Senator Nina Turner. and I am president of Our Revolution. And much like my colleagues who are here on the stage, which I'm honored to be with, you know, it really is a call to service. I consider myself very much a hell-raising humanitarian in the spirit of Mother Jones, in the spirit of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbossed. Wow. So that's how I'm rolling. So my political affiliation is that of a hell-raising humanitarian. I'm very proud of that. But, you know, how I got over, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over. And, you know, just giving salute to my ancestors. We are in Black History Month, so I want to give big ups to all of my ancestors who fought so hard so that I can be on the stage like this. Had it not been for them, I wouldn't be here with the rainbow mosaic of humanity. And I'm just so thrilled that Unrigged is bringing all of us together, because really this is about us as human beings. We weren't birthed into the world as a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian or a Green Party. We were birthed into the world as thinking, feeling human beings who desire to live a good life. And that's what we're here about at Unrigged. So I got some amens from the congressman over here. So, you know, again, life ain't been no crystal stairs. Langston Hughes said, I'm the oldest of 7 children, and the reason why I do this, and the reason why those of you who probably only know me through sound bites, you do see me raising a whole lot of hell, is that I believe that those of us who have been blessed either to serve currently in the political space or have served in that political space are really here to serve people and to use that power to do that. And so having a mother die very young at the age of 42 years old, I was 22 when my mother died, the oldest of 7. My baby sister was 12 years old. And my mother had an aneurysm. It was totally unexpected. And I'm a sophomore at a community college trying to become a cycle breaker. And it is because of her death that I continue to push to become a first-generation college graduate. So I understand the power of higher education to help people change the trajectory of their lives. It is an important thing. And you know, just for her memory and for the working poor and the barely middle class in this country, it is important that we lift our voices. So for me, this thing is real. I feel it deep. It is a mission. It is an assignment. This is not something frivolous or cavalier for me. I feel this in my soul and in my bones. And when my obituary is written, I want people to talk about how she fought like hell for the people. Mother Jones once said, I pray for the dead and I fight like hell for the living. And that is how Sister Turner rolls at all times. And one more thing, I got to give a shout out to my son because I am a mother. My son is also in the military. My grandfather served in World War II. My son is currently a law enforcement officer. He's a police officer, following in the footsteps of my husband, who's a retired police officer. So I do get what service. Service is all through my bones. And all of us can serve. You know, Dr. King once said we all can be great because we all can serve. But I want to put it this way. Titles are good. And all of us up here, we have titles that we're privileged to have, and it gets our phone calls returned, and it gets us in the door. Titles are good, but purpose is better.
Amen.
Zach.
Just add a minute to what I said earlier. In 1992, I ran against an 18-year incumbent who was on the Armed Services Committee and took about 2/3 of their money from PACs. So I didn't take any PAC money when I ran for Congress. I thought that it was a rigged system and that franked mail was wrong, so I never did any unsolicited franked mail while I was in the Congress. I never did a town hall meeting. I really believed it was a rigged system, so I wanted to do something about it. But I'll tell you how I became effective. 4 of my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, I learned every one of their first names, and I called every one of them by their first name. I had a lot of friends. I got a lot done. Neither party has an exclusive on integrity or ideas. We're all people. We're all Americans. We've got to work together from this point forward.
Amen.
Thanks, guys. So the first question I have, and I'm actually going to start with you, Mike. You're looking at a room that's sitting here brought together to unrig the system.
Sure.
I would not describe you as a rhino. You're a pretty conservative Republican. What brings you here to unrig, and what in your background makes you want to be here?
Sure. As someone who I was not planning on running for office. It all kind of happened quite unexpectedly when my congressman retired. My experience was that the barriers to entry are so high. And I got lucky in the sense that this was a good year to be running as an outsider, someone who didn't have a political history. And 2, I just worked briefly as the foreign policy guy in a presidential campaign, which meant that I had this network of people that were able to support me financially, which was good for me, but at the same time I found myself thinking, it shouldn't cost you $3 million to run for Congress, particularly in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I worry that because the barriers to entry are so high, that often the best people, maybe I'm evidence of this point, don't step up and run for office, and that troubles me. And in my background, I'd say, you know, how would I describe this? So in the Marine Corps, we would say, you ride to the sound of the guns, which basically means if you see a problem, you don't ignore it, you don't punt, you try and fix it. And while I think we have different hypotheses about what is exactly wrong with our system, we can all agree that it is producing suboptimal outcomes. And I gotta believe we can be doing better. I was talking with Catherine Gale, Michael Porter, and I commend their report. If you haven't read it, it's a must read. And I was saying, at the end of the day, like, I just want the government to make original mistakes, not keep making the same mistake over and over.
Amen.
Oh, that's good.
Great. Tulsi, what about you?
Where to begin? The challenges and the problems are many, and the system as it exists is so corrosive and so corrupt. I no longer accept any PAC money. The experience in Washington for me has changed since I made that decision, how my time is being spent, and really seeing the heavy influence that PACs and lobbyists have on the decisions that are made in Washington, spanning a whole realm of issues, whether it's, you know, defense contractors influencing defense policy, pharmaceutical companies influencing, you know, how much our Medicare drugs cost, influencing, as we've seen recently, legislation that was passed in the dark of night by some members of Congress who are heavy recipients of Big Pharma's money to emasculate the DEA's ability to go after the flood of opioid drugs in so many communities all across the country. You can go down the list from fossil fuel energy. You can go down the list of these kind of major corporate industries and couple that very directly with the policies that are being passed in Washington and how disconnected those are from the needs and the desires and the cares of people in communities like mine in Hawaii and Green Bay, Wisconsin. When you look at the actual issues that exist, the challenges that folks at home face in our communities, they're not so different, even though the geography may be a little different. You know, it's about how can I afford a place to live and raise my family, have a clean and safe community to raise my kids, and to be able to have a promise and hope for a better future. So by doing what we're doing here, by getting to the heart of how corrosive an effect money has on our politics and really regaining that voice and trust and confidence of the people, that's how we can begin to get back to a government of, by, and for the people.
Great. Thank you. Anita, so we've heard from this Washington perspective. So you're mostly at the local and state level. Do you find that the issues that you hear them talking about resonate with you at this local and state level?
Oh, absolutely, especially when I served in the Ohio Senate. I mean, lobbyists wrote the legislation, so similar to my colleagues on the federal level, it happens at all levels of government, and that's why we need people who are committed to the people to run for office and who will not allow themselves to be bought and paid for by special interests, not just in Washington, but in state legislatures across the country. And this is just heavy time. We need the 28th Amendment to the, we need to amend the Constitution to make sure that we undo Citizens United. And so organizations like American Promise and organizations like Stamp Stampede, which I encourage everybody here to go and get a stamp and stamp your money. And the dollar bill or the $20 bill you hold up will say not to bribe politicians. This is not to be used to bribe politicians. That the money should not, and it really is about the voice of the people. And the fact that Citizens United is structured in such a way, and we had problems before Citizens United. Let's just be real. This is a corrupt system that only we the people can change. There are some people within the system, like my colleagues who are sitting here today, who want to change it, but there's others who believe that the status quo is just all right with them because they benefit from it. And it's not Republican or Democrat. It is a mindset. It is a mentality. And that is what we must go after, not what side of the aisle that somebody is on, but what is the mentality that got us here, that we feel like as a nation that the more money you have, the more voice you should have Absolutely not.
Amen.
The greatest equalizer that we have, there are few, but one of the top three is the power of the ballot box. One woman, one man, one vote. And we should not allow we the people, that's what Unrigged is about, is bringing we the people together to demand better. You know, Frederick Douglass once said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. And the system will only change if we, the people, get out there and force it to change and only support candidates who do not take that kind of money. Money by the people.
So I'd like to throw a question to the panel generally and see who wants to answer this. As someone who has worked in this area for many years and talked about the importance of bipartisanship, we all know it's very hard. So what gives you hope in a time of polarization? What do you see out there that you actually think that this goal of trying to bring good people from goodwill together to address these issues is actually possible? Because I can tell you, if you go out beyond these walls, people don't believe it's possible. What makes you think we can do it?
I'll start by saying younger Americans. They're more pragmatic. They don't want a 3-car garage. They don't necessarily want to retire at 65. They think out of the box. Technology allows them to do things that my generation can't do. I'm encouraged by the next generation. I'm encouraged by my kids. I'm not encouraged by my generation. So that's an exciting thing. I'll also tell you this. You got like 50 members of Congress right now. They're just walking away. Now that encourages me because it gets the attention of the leadership of both parties that something's wrong. The job stinks if you have to go over and sit in a booth and make fundraising calls from a list in order to advance. That's called dialing for dollars. It is a corrupting influence. In Tennessee, I'm encouraged where when the legislature comes in January and it recesses or adjourns in May, no fundraising between January and May. Zero. Nobody can ask for money. No fundraisers can be held. I'm encouraged that people at the state level are waking up to disconnecting this nuclear arms race for money from leading and governing, because you can't do both. The scripture said you can't be double-minded. If your focus is completely on fundraising and campaigning, how in the hell can you legislate?
Come on, say that.
What gives me hope is not what's happening in Washington, but what's happening and the feeling and the energy and the message that we're getting from the people. I was with, along with Nina, was with Bernie Sanders on much of the presidential campaign in 2016, and you know, unless you were there, and unfortunately a lot of folks in the media weren't and didn't quite capture what was happening, and it was something that hadn't happened before. That desire for change that really comes from the grassroots, that comes from people, not just progressives or Democrats, but independents, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party. Take away all the labels, people saying, hey, we are the ones who have the power to dictate what kind of future we want for our country, and we're not going to stand on the sidelines anymore. So that is where I am inspired. That's where I draw hope from, and that is truly where change to this corrupt system will come from.
Can I add? Sure. I think Zach raises a really interesting point, and this may be different at the Senate level than the House, but money is a problem. I think it could be the problem. I don't know, but it's not. It doesn't work the way I think people think it works, right? Like no one, and Zach, you may have a different experience. No one has ever come into my office and said, I'll give you 10 grand if you support X or do X, Y, Z. Maybe they know I would throw them out of my office, but the real cost of money is the time, right? We have a system right now that does not have any deliberation. Turn on C-SPAN. You'll see someone giving a speech to an empty chamber of Congress. Or you'll see someone parachute in to a committee hearing and read a talking point that their staff wrote for them, because they are spending time across the street dialing for dollars. So it's important to point that out. And I would echo something that both of you said, and this is weird for a Republican to say. What gives me hope is that I was thinking about this the other day. What's happening in California right now? Let me explain. But maybe you want to clap. So California is doing a bunch of stuff that I think is bizarre, and I don't think it's going to work, right? I think they just criminalized like plastic straws or something based on research written by a 9-year-old. True story. They almost passed single payer, but I'm thinking, yes, go for it. Try it out. Let's see if it works. Texas will probably try something dramatically different. And let's just empower the laboratories of democracy. I'm a conservative because I believe in federalism. And I suspect in Wisconsin we're going to be in the Goldilocks position, and it's not going to be too hot or too cold, and you're all going to want to move there. So that experimentation, I think, gives me a little bit of hope.
Right. So if you look out at this audience of people that are just looking for something to do, right? These are people that are engaged. They want to be a part of the answer. And you know when you go home, and I know when I talk to people around the country, they're very frustrated, but they don't know what to do, right? They feel like, oh, can I go make phone calls? Even my husband says, ugh, the thought of just sitting there doing, the phone banking makes me want to go jump out the window. So if you look at this crowd of people that are just right there waiting to be part of the solution, how can they best, in your view, engage in being part of the solution other than marching?
Well, they can join a group. Our revolution is here. We got 530 groups all across this country and 7 international. But seriously, join a group, whether it's Our Revolution or some other organization within your community that is committed to the causes that you believe in. We are not helpless and we are not hopeless. And the thing about this particular political environment or climate is that it's suffocating people. It's choking the life out of folks. So I've talked to people all across this country. Some people don't even want to get out of bed. But we cannot let that be the reality. And we got to remember who we are, what we are, and why we are. Now, democracy is participatory. You cannot sit on the sidelines and expect it to work. You have to be in the game. And that is what we need to be able to turn this thing around. And sometimes we fight for things that we may not even fully get the opportunity to enjoy. But the big thing about people who dream big, who think big, who, in the words of President Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. It is you believing that it can be done in your lifetime, recognizing that even though, and if it's not, that you are advancing the causes of things that are bigger than you, and making sure that we get big money, not all money, because we need some money. I mean, money can't buy you love, but it gets you a whole bunch of likes. We do need money for the mission. You need money for the mission, but the more people who are putting in their time, their treasure, and their talent into this system, the better that it is. And we have to have a no tolerance for big money overpowering the everyday voices of everyday people in this country. So join an organization, start an organization, run for office, raise some hell, but whatever you do, you got to do something. Right.
Tulsi?
Yeah, there's so much at stake. It really makes me sad that in my home state of Hawaii and in this country as a whole, we have such an incredibly low voter turnout. When there is so much opportunity, there is so much sacrifice that people have made to create this land of opportunity, to create this democracy that is weak because of its lack of participation. So if you're not into going out and doing marches and organizing protests, make sure that you vote. Talk to your friends and family. Make sure that they vote. I've lectured a few of my uncles who've said, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to waste my time. And honestly, that makes me mad. Being able to make this personal, I think that's really the bottom line. As Nina said, there are so many ways to get involved, whether you have a little time or a lot of time. Make sure that you vote, get others around you to vote, and be informed on who you're voting for. That I think is the next major step is hold leaders accountable, hold candidates accountable. Don't blindly vote down party line. Really look towards what kinds of leaders we want to represent our country. Are they going to be leaders who work together with others who may have ideological differences, who may be of another party, but who are most focused on service, finding solutions, and delivering results to our community? That's where I think we need to go.
Mike?
And work out together. There's a bipartisan workout group that we're part of.
We get up at 6:30 in the morning every day, and
Tulsi
we're all
kicks my
pretty
butt every
grumpy.
morning.
But yeah.
I would say simply, one thing we could all do is spend less time online, talking to people we agree with, and just more time having a beer with someone in person that you disagree with, maybe. So that's my simple thing.
Okay, great. Well, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I would like to, I know you've been able to hear a little bit from Zach, and I certainly would invite all of you to go and visit the Issue 1 website, as many of the other organizations are here, to talk about solutions, because that's what I keep trying to say. We're the solutions people. But Zach, you've talked about the generational change that you think needs to happen, but there are people here that are not of that generation. There are people here that are engaged of all ages. So when you try and think and go out and convince people at the Chamber of Commerce or at the Rotary Club, these people that are of the non-millennial generation, what is your message to them, and what would be your charge be to the folks as they leave today?
Well, I want to encourage you. You know, the noted anthropologist and sociologist Margaret Mead once said that she had come to believe that a small group of dedicated and committed people can actually change the world. In fact, she said, it's the only thing that ever has. We actually believe together in a set of principles, the people in this room, whose time has come. There's a lot of things whose time has come. We've seen the Me Too movement obviously reach a time has come. This issue of political reform, of a bipartisan coming together to disconnect big money, as you say, from the decisions made on behalf of the people in this country, special interest running rampant, and frankly, Congress being pulled by the two-party system out of touch with the American people. Our time has come. I will caution us, though, that information is power, and accurate information is the only way to convey real information to bring about significant change. There is fake news. There's fake news in every direction. There's fake news by other countries being promulgated to try to spin the world in their direction. We have to have accurate information conveyed to people to give them the power to bring about change. So for God's sakes, whatever you think you know, double check to make sure it's right, and that somebody's not feeding you propaganda, because propaganda is rampant in today's society. Frankly, TV 24/7 news from MSNBC to Fox is not accurate. It's simply driving ratings. We've got to find accurate information and convey it. Now, I say to Rotary clubs, don't give up. We can't afford to give up. This is an experiment. Can free people actually govern themselves? It's a question. We don't have the answer. For 200 years, it's actually worked. But I got to tell you, the fundamentals are not good. If we don't come together around certain political reforms, this experiment is going to come unraveled in our lifetime. We cannot wait any longer. So let's set aside the things that divide us and come together on the things that unite us, and let's bring about these changes while the American people's attention is on political reform, because I believe it is. The insurgencies are still out there. Just because Sanders didn't win and Trump did win, listen, there's a vacuum in leadership at the very top in this country. Something's going to fill it. Let it be us.
Amen. All right. Thank you very much, panelists. Our time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome.
She's amazing.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Vanessa Zaring. I'm the Director of Operations at RepresentUs. Before you all go, I just have a couple of quick announcements. First of all, the next session is starting at 10:55 instead of 10:45. We have 2 location changes. The Fierce, Independent, and Fighting for You session is now in Stibbs 203. How to launch a local group or campaign is now in Rogers Memorial Chapel. And you can check out the app or the website or go over to the registration table for a full program. Everything's been updated. And make sure that you plan ahead, because we have an incredible day of sessions and workshops. I don't want you to miss out. One last point. After programming, we're going to be having a cocktail hour at the LBC starting at 6:30. We'd love to have you all there because you don't want to miss out on Unrigged Live tonight here at McAllister at 8 p.m. The doors will open at 7:30, hosted by the lovely Jennifer Lawrence. But if you do need to leave campus for any reason, please keep in mind it's Mardi Gras, which means that there's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of parades. If you think you need 20 minutes, plan for an hour. And I want to quickly recognize the academic delegation and its co-chairs, Professor Anthony Johnstone and Professor Chara Torres-Spelisi. Thank you so much for being here. And folks, if you have an idea for what research is needed in the movement to help unrig the system, you can go on the app, post in the bulletin board under academic delegation. They'll be talking about it all day tomorrow. And tomorrow we're also going to be having an unconference. There will be a free brunch for every single one of you. So please make it out there. And you'll have an opportunity to lead panels and have conversations about things that aren't currently in our program. And if you'd like to submit panel ideas, again, go to the app. Lastly, I'd like to give a really big thank you to the generous foundations and sponsors that help make Unrig possible. The Rockefeller Brothers Foundation, Overbrook Foundation, Lodestar Foundation, Bridge Alliance, Center for Secure and Modern Elections, CrowdPack, Proxy Vote, Creative Artist Agency, and End Citizens United. And a very, very special thanks to the Unrigged Live producing sponsor, Triptych Studios. And one final note, there are hundreds of organizations spending thousands of hours every single day researching reform. And we have built this beautiful map. You can check it out at unrigthesystem.com/map. Please use it. It's going to save us time. It's going to save us money. And we all know we're short on that. So welcome to day 2. Thank you so much for being here. And let's get to it.
Express yourself. Express yourself. You don't never need help from nobody else. All you got to do now, express yourself. Whatever you do, whatever you do.